Hi everyone, my name is Erik Link and I represent HEA from Sweden. Today's focus will be on community-based intergenerational learning. Today we will explore intergenerational learning beyond the classroom. We will look at two case studies, the Swedish project Studio Döbra and urban learning gardens from international research. Why this topic? Because around the world, societies are becoming more divided by age. Children spend time mostly with children. Older people often meet mostly people of their own age. But when generations come together, sometimes something powerful happens. Learning flows in both directions. This presentation is about how public spaces, like gardens, libraries, or art workshops, can become meeting places where generations connect, learn, and grow together. The purpose of this presentation is twofold. First, to explore how public spaces can support intergenerational learning. And second, to share real-life examples, one from Sweden and others from international contexts. So by the end, you will not only know what intergenerational learning is in theory, but also how it works in practice. And hopefully, you will reflect on how your own community can create more of these opportunities. Think about it as we get along. Where in your local area could generations come together? Maybe a park, maybe a schoolyard, maybe a library space. What is intergenerational learning? Intergenerational learning means learning between people of different generations. It happens through collaboration and shared activities. For example, a grandfather teaches his grandchild how to cook a traditional dish. A teenager teaches an older neighbor how to use a smartphone. A community garden brings together children and seniors to grow vegetables together. It's not one side teaching, it's a mutual exchange. Both groups contribute, both groups gain. It helps break stereotypes. Children realize that older adults are not just old, and older adults discover that young people are creative and resourceful. Most people think learning happens in schools, but in reality, much learning happens outside classroom. Think of libraries where young people and retirees both go to read, learn, and attend events. Think of community centers where workshops mix people of all ages. Think of urban gardens where growing food became a shared project. Even public parks where change meetings create new conversations. These are non-formal learning spaces. They are not controlled by a teacher. There is no strict curriculum. but learning still happens. Sometimes more deeply because it's voluntary and connected to life. Our first knowledge goal is to understand the role of public spaces in intergenerational learning. Public spaces are not just neutral areas, they are pedagogical environments. They can foster curiosity, dialogue, and collaboration. The second goal is to recognize their potential. Imagine a bench in a park. It can be just a bench, or it can be a meeting point where a child learns stories from elder, or an elder learns new songs from a child. The way we design and use these spaces change whether they become learning platforms or not. To use public space for learning, we need the right mindset. We must appreciate the value of non-formal learning, and we must be open to collaborative learning beyond classrooms. Public spaces can include all ages, backgrounds, and abilities. Support lifelong learning by offering easy access to activities, and encourage spontaneous encounters that build empathy. Think about when you have learned something in an unexpected place, maybe at a cafe, in a conversation on the bus, or while helping a neighbor. That is also learning. So the key attitude is be open to learning everywhere with everyone. Now our first case, Studio Döbra in Sweden. The name means Studio Dying Well. The project brought children and older adults together to talk about death, loss, and the end of life. These are topics that are usually avoided, but Studio Döbra showed that children want to talk about them, and older adults also need to talk about it. They used art and creativity as a bridge. In workshops, children and older people worked side by side using images, stories, and play to open difficult conversations in a safe way. The methods were playful but deep. Symbol work, participants choose objects or images that represented feelings. This helped them express emotions without always using words. College and visual arts. By creating together, participants could start conversations indirectly. Storytelling. Some shared personal experiences, others imagined stories. Both help to explore life and death in a safe way. And dialogue. Structure discussions created trust. The workshop used something called the magic circle. a protected space where participants felt free to be honest and vulnerable. This shows us that even very sensitive topics can be addressed if the methods are creative and safe. The results were powerful. Children and older adults formed a new relationship. Participants felt more comfortable discussing death, a topic many avoid, and the project strengthening social capital, meaning trust, networks, and cooperation in the community. So, what started as a small art workshop became something much bigger, a way to connect generations and make communities more resilient. Of course, there were challenges. First, death is a sensitive subject. Facilitators had to balance honesty with care. Second, they needed to balance playfulness with emotional depth. Too much seriousness could scare children, but much playfulness could make it shallow. Third, trust was essential. Without trust, participants would not open up. The lesson here: intergenerational projects need safe facilitation. You cannot just bring groups together, you must create the right atmosphere. But Studio Döbra also had impacts beyond the workshops. Families started talking more openly about death at home. Schools included more discussions about life and mortality. And in the community, the project inspired civic dialogue through public art. So one project created ripples that spread much wider. Our second example is urban learning gardens. These are shared gardening spaces that work like living classrooms. Children, young people, adults, and seniors come together to plant, water, and harvest. Why gardens? Because gardening requires care, patience, and collaboration. You cannot grow food alone, it requires joint work. Gardens require daily interaction, which builds trust and friendship. And food is something everyone connects to. It carries memories, traditions, and hope. Researchers like Hake show that learning happens in many places, not only schools. Learning gardens are informal, intergenerational spaces where knowledge is shared through activity. They are about learning in action. For example, a grandmother shows a child how to grow beans. The child later teaches her how to look up recipes online. That is intergenerational exchange. No textbooks, no exams, just real life learning. And the key insight is that learning and community are built together through practice. In gardens, skills move across generations. All the generations pass on traditions, how to preserve food, how to cook, how to respect the soil. Younger generations bring innovation, new tools, digital apps for planting, or new cooking ideas. This reciprocity builds respect. Each group sees the value in the another, and that is exactly what society often lacks: mutual respect across ages. Gardens also have wider value. They promote sustainability, that people learn where food came from. They build social networks where different cultures and ages meet. They support health both through physical activity and fresh food. So the learning garden is not only educational, it is also social and ecological. So what lessons can we take from learning gardens? That learning is practical, you learn by doing. Learning is interdependent. If one person does not water, the group cannot succeed. Learning involves negotiation. Different generations, different cultures, they must talk and compromise. So the garden becomes a microcosm of society: cooperation, responsibility, and dialogue. Let's compare our two cases. Studio Döbra focus on emotional dialogue through art, and learning gardens focus on practical collaboration through nature. Different methods, but the same outcome: stronger communities, deeper connections, and more empathy across generations. Finally, intergenerational learning projects support civic engagement. They give knowledge about social impact. They train skills to lead community projects. And they encourage attitudes of shared responsibility and inclusion. In other words, they not only teach gardening or art, they teach citizenship. To finish, I want to ask you two questions. How can we create more learning spaces for generation in our own community? And what local resources are not used to the full potential? Maybe there is a library that could host art workshops. Maybe there is an empty yard that could become a garden. Maybe there are untold stories in your neighborhood that could be shared across generations. Thank you everyone who watched our webinar on community-based intergenerational learning. Make sure to follow our project's social media and stay tuned for more webinars coming out very soon. Bye.